Springfield's Talk 1041. Good Wednesday morning, everyone. Welcome to the show. My name is Nick Reed. Today is the last day to get registered for your chance to win a table for two this Friday for the Valentine's Day Sweetheart Dinner, Vineyard Market, three-course chef-curated dinner, wine pairing, and you think, well, no, wait, Friday's not Valentine's Day. Yes, that is correct. Vineyard Market availing themselves to you for Valentine's Day on two separate nights. Works out conveniently when you've got Valentine's Day on a Saturday. You can do a Friday and a Saturday, and you can check out any opening reservation slots that they do have for either night by going to their website. And if you want to register to win for that Friday night table for two, just go to ksgf.com and you can get yourself registered there. That goes until what time tonight or today?
I think it goes all night.
Oh, okay.
Or until, midnight. Yeah.
All right, very good. And so
yep, and I will contact you first thing tomorrow morning.
Yes. Tomorrow morning you shall be contacted. So make sure to watch. It'll be via text, is that correct?
Yes, it'll be from the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line, and it'll go something along like, hey guys, this is Sarah Myers, congrats, you're the winner. And then if I don't hear from you, I'll call you.
Yes, but obviously you have to have a pretty quick turnaround, given that the following day is Friday. So you want to make sure to keep an eye on those text messages tomorrow morning. And while you're at ksgf.com, you can sign up for the Godfather's Pizza, all-you-can-eat pizza buffet salad bar as part of our KSGF Godfather's Lunch Bunch. That's where you are currently doing. We've got one today. Very excited about that. Any day that Godfather's Pizza's in my life is a good day. And, of course, we do the Lunch Bunch at the Springfield location, though they have Ozark, Battlefield, and Nixa as well. I say they. It's the same owner, who's a fantastic guy, owns those four locations. So locally owned, in case. This issue comes up so often, and you get the buy local. And, a lot of times these different companies, I'll just give you an example without getting too specific. There was a conversation going on in my household about these two separate coffee places, if you will, that are virtually side by side. And they're places that we go to both of them, just depending on the day and I guess whatever suits us on that particular day. And the girl child was talking about how she had visited one in particular, and then the wife said something about, hey, keeping it local. And I said, well, they actually are not only national, but they're international. I mean, they're a franchise also. They're just locally, they're based here. And the comment was, well, yeah, their headquarters are local. I said, well, the other place, they have headquarters that are local somewhere. All of these businesses, don't get me wrong, particularly because I have a lot of friends that own businesses, they run businesses. I frequent those businesses, but I think too often we dismiss some of these other businesses that are franchises that are owned by local people. I saw there was a video that was put on by the Republic Chamber, and it was sort of a ribbon cutting for the Huey Magoo's there on 60 in between Springfield and Republic. And he was talking to the two owners, and it was this couple that, 50s or 60s, local couple. And the people who work there are local people raising kids. And I don't know, that whole just, sometimes we make it so cut and dry. If it has a corporate name, somehow that in no way, shape, or form is local, and then, the other is 100% local. And I don't know, sometimes it's just it's a little more of a gray area, in my opinion. But, ultimately do what you want. Wasn't really planning on getting into that. Don't even know why I did now at this point.
Godfathers.
Oh, yes, that's right. Godfathers, locally owned. Guy named Mike. Coming up, Well, I'll just share this before the news because there's not really a tremendous amount of detail to go into other than when you went to bed last night, you may have heard that there was a person of interest that had been detained by law enforcement. That person of interest subsequently was released. His mother-in-law was questioned. He was questioned, and he is a delivery driver, and I think it was Telemundo caught him as he was returning home and just, sort of asking him some basic questions. He, of course, he's like, I have no idea why it was. I was just driving around with my wife, got pulled over, and here he is talking yesterday, getting home apparently after they released him.
You were apprehended for questioning. How would you describe what happened to you?
Terrifying. Something I didn't do for something. I was being like, I felt like I was being kidnapped, bro. They didn't tell me anything at the beginning.
And investigators showed up to this house, or were you the one who was pulled over in the traffic stop?
I was the one that was pulled over at the traffic stop.
Where was that?
Right here on by Chubasco.
Okay, and you were taken into custody at that point?
Yeah.
And you were
I was being detained.
detained. Okay.
I was detained the whole time.
Okay,
That's what they told me.
Where were they
At
holding
the
you?
back of a car.
Back of
a
a car.
Miranda car, and then they moved me into a Pima County Sheriff.
Were you being questioned in the car?
At the Miranda car, I was being questioned, but they only asked me for my first name, my last name, my date of birth, and my social.
Okay. What were they asking you about?
Where my whereabouts.
Okay.
Where did I work? Where was I? And all that. But
Are you ever up in Tucson?
yeah, I work in Tucson.
What do you do?
GLS, deliver packages.
Okay. Do you think you might have delivered a package to Nancy Guthrie's
I
house?
don't know. Might have been a possibility. I don't know.
Yeah. Do you ever deliver like Amazon packages or anything?
Well, it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
All right, and I've seen some people like, how could he not know if he delivered a package to her house? And I'm thinking, are you serious? I mean, I don't.
He probably delivers hundreds a day.
Well, yeah, and I'm sure that there are some people in homes that may stand out and you remember, but I just like, I don't think that's a reasonable expectation. Oh, I don't. That seems suspicious. He really doesn't remember. Now, I've never been a package delivery driver, but I think it's pretty reasonable not to expect him to be like, oh yeah, I know that person's house. I've delivered there. I mean, I don't know. Now, there's going to, of course, tons of conversation on this today, and I suspect the way a lot of it's going to play out is people frustrated and openly asking, well, why did they pull this guy? Well, what's going on here? Well, the reasons that they felt as if this person might have a connection might be reasons that they don't want to reveal because of the ongoing investigation, or if this is someone who has nothing whatsoever to do with it, they don't want to tip the person off by saying, oh yeah, well, it's because we had this information and this information and this information, and that led us to believe that this person may have been involved or know somebody who was involved in some capacity. So you can understand that there are potentially circumstances in which whatever information they had, they don't want to make public. So as to not tip the person off as to how it is that they're potentially honing in on them. And then on the flip side, too, they may think this guy did do it, but now they want to see, okay, let's release him and let's watch where he goes. Perhaps they suspect that she's still alive and he has her somewhere. And so this is going to be an attempt to see, are other people involved? Or if they are, does he contact them? Are we going to be able to get more information by letting him go? We're going to keep a close eye on him in order to make sure that he doesn't flee and get away. And we don't think he will anyhow because, there's just, this is, I think, what we need to understand is that there obviously is a lot of information that we don't know, but oftentimes it's for very good reason. And law enforcement, the longer something like this goes on, the more the public in general, and oftentimes the media fuels this to some degree, gets frustrated at law enforcement in sort of creating an impossible scenario for them because we want to know what's going on. But oftentimes that process is a process that ends up with dead ends or bad leads or you are searching for 10 different people that for different reasons are a person of interest, and you go around and you're finding them, and the public doesn't understand that there are a lot of different pieces moving, and that much of it is a process of elimination. And so it just looks like, well, look, they're incompetent, they found some guy and it wasn't him, so they clearly were wrong and don't know what they're doing. And so if law enforcement fills us in on everything, not understanding how it is that these things play out, it can make it seem as if they don't know what they're doing, because they're constantly talking to people that turn out to be nothing, and then they do this, and that has nothing to do with it. But then on the flip side, if they don't tell us anything, then there's all sorts of demand for them to be transparent, and accusations that they may be hampering the potential capture of the individual, because the public could be of help in some capacity if only the public knew more information. And so that is part, of course, of what they have to deal with, is trying to navigate through that, and what is this damned if you do, damned if you don't situation as the clock ticks. After the news update, the last couple of weeks, popping up in the headlines, Georgia elections, largely because of the FBI heading down to Georgia and executing warrants and gathering up information. And then you had this hit piece by the Wall Street Journal that was on Tulsi Gabbard, the director of the DNI, which most people reasonably argued was essentially trying to discredit this entire operation. There's a judge that unsealed the warrant on this, and there is a lot of information in it that, at the very least, screams total and complete, at the very, very least, incompetence when it comes to running Georgia elections, and in the more nefarious corner of things, a complete and absolute corruption and rigging of elections. So I want to share some of what was revealed in that release yesterday coming up. Springfield's Talk 1041, latest news update.
The first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 57. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 36. For your Thursday, we'll see a slight chance of showers in the afternoon, otherwise mostly cloudy with a high near 56. And for Friday, partly sunny with a high near 61.
A judge has unsealed the warrant and affidavit of probable cause for the FBI search warrant of Fulton County's 2020 election records. Georgia, of course, is a state that has been an ongoing focus when it comes to voter irregularities, at the least. That is an undeniable reality. Whether it was because of standard human error, complete and total incompetence, or corruptions is really the question at hand. You lump into that just the non-traditional makeup of all of the players. You have a state and a secretary of state and a governor that are all Republicans, yet during the 2020 election, it was clear to most people that there was a real attempt by the Republican leadership in Georgia to paint Donald Trump as trying to rig the election, trying to get them to, quote, find votes for him, which is not what was discussed. I just need to footnote this because it is still one of the biggest disinformation narratives about this, in which, and I've even heard Republicans say, well, Donald Trump told him to find 17,000 votes. That's not what he was saying. And we know this because of the release of the full transcript of the conversation. And that was regarding a trigger law in Georgia, in which if there was a certain percentage of ballots that had irregularities during any particular election, it triggered an automatic recount, maybe even a hand recount. And the Trump people had already, by way of the poll observers, noted that there was more than enough of these irregularities. And whatever the number was, 17,000 or so irregularities that were needed in order to trigger a recount. And so what the Trump team was doing is saying, listen, you need find these irregularities. We know that they're there. Just locate them so that this recount can occur. That was the context of that request that the Trump people were making about, quote, finding votes. Then you had, of course, prosecute Fannie Willis down there, and the attempt to imprison some of the Trump attorneys for questioning much of these irregularities. And so one of the aspects of this that makes it a little less black and white is this isn't a Democrat versus Republican. This isn't Donald Trump and the FBI and the Department of Justice looking at California or New Jersey. That's all Democrats across the board. A scenario in which you can have the governor and the establishment saying, oh, well, this is just political. Because while some of these counties are run by Democrats, the state as a whole, including the Secretary of State's office that has ultimate final say and jurisdiction over these matters, is a Republican. Well, last month, the FBI executed a search warrant on Fulton County's election hub and operations center seeking physical paper ballots, ballot images from the November 3rd, 2020 original count and subsequent counts, all tabulator tapes from the 2020 election, and voter rolls used for the 2020 election. Approximately 656 boxes were taken by the FBI to an undisclosed location. The Director of Registrations and Elections, Nadine Williams, had previously submitted a sworn affidavit stating that there were over 700 boxes of election records. So already there's a discrepancy there. You had a sworn affidavit saying we have over 700 boxes, but when the FBI arrives and shows up, they are only taking 656, suggesting that there are numerous boxes that were said to exist that were not there. According to the probable cause section, the FBI criminal investigation originated from a referral that was sent by Kurt Olson, the presidentially appointed Director of Election Security and Integrity. The affidavit focused on 5 deficiencies or defects with the November 3rd, 2020 election and tabulation of voting, and they broke down into these 5 categories. 1. The tabulator machines used by Fulton County are designed to create and save a scanned image of each and every ballot. Fulton County has admitted that it does not have the scanned images of any of the 528,777 ballots counted during the original count, or the 527,925 ballots counted during the recount. Second, Fulton County has confirmed that during the recount of votes, some ballots were scanned multiple times. Ballot images made available in response to public record requests show ballots with unique markings duplicated within the ballot images. So in other words, there may be a ballot that had some sort of flaw, a little ink spot, something that made it unique from the others. And while going through the scanned images, it was seen that that ballot was scanned numerous times as a separate ballot, even though it was the same ballot. And Fulton County has admitted this. Now, of course, they never have any reasons or rationale for these things. Thirdly, during the risk-limiting audit, auditors counting the votes by hand reported vote tallies for batches inconsistent with the actual votes within the batch. The state's Performance Review Board reported that Secretary of State investigators confirmed inaccurate ballot tallies from the risk-limiting audit. 4. Auditors assisting in the risk-limiting audit reported counting purported absentee ballots that had never been creased or folded as they would have to have been in order to be mailed to the voter and for the ballot to be returned in the sealed envelope requiring the voter's signature for authentication. Now, this seems like such a no-brainer. If you are going to commit voter fraud and you're going to stuff the ballot box with absentee ballots, you would think to fold them so that it was it would at least appear that these were absentee ballots that had been mailed out and mailed back in. But I think that the arrogance and the comfortable nature in which many of these different districts and municipalities in the country are with voter fraud, that they don't even bother to think of those things. Or if they do, they don't think it's necessary. Because this is what is difficult, I think, for a lot of people to believe, particularly in Democrat-run areas of the country. This sort of voter fraud is so prevalent that it is well known, but Democrats had gotten very accustomed prior to Trump to Republicans just writing this off as that is the cost of doing business when you run against Democrats. Democrats control certain areas, they control certain election boards, and the election boards are the ones who are supposed to have oversight, but they're run by Democrats. And so when Democrats cheat, they are going to keep them in the clear on it. And so Republicans quit fighting this stuff. When it comes to running for office in Democrat areas that are run by the Democrats, the elections are run by the Democrats, they just don't fight it any longer because they figure, what's the point? And when you have that sort of understanding, that's how you end up with such laziness and sloppiness regarding voter fraud, to where you are claiming ballots or absentee ballots that were mailed out, but they were never folded to be put in an envelope. Fifth, on the day of the deadline to report the recount results, Fulton County reported a recount totaling 511,343 ballots. 17,434 ballots fewer than originally counted. They just disappeared. The following day, Fulton County then reported a total of 527,925 ballots counted. If the deficiencies outlined were the result of, quote, intentional action, then they would be a violation of federal law, regardless of whether it was outcome determinative, according to the affidavit. Now, why is that significant? whenever there is evidence or proof of voter fraud that cannot be dismissed by Democrats, the backup narrative is, well, it wasn't enough fraud to make a difference. And we've heard Republicans say this. I've heard Roy Blunt say this in the past, I think when it came to the 2020 election. That, well, there may have been some voter fraud, but it wasn't enough to make a difference. Well, what this notes is, according to federal law, that does not matter. You don't get to get away with it just because it can't be proven that it altered the outcome of the election. We're going to take a break. We've got a traffic update, and then I want to get into some of they're pretty stark details as to the discrepancies here that when you read through some of this, you can see why it is. That it is so very clear to the administration, to the Department of Justice, that there is something horribly wrong going on in Fulton County, Georgia. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. The Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. We got a text in. I'm seeing articles about ICE in Branson. There was a meeting. Can you clarify what that meeting was all about? We will be talking about that later in the program. So if you are unable to catch it, don't worry. Of course, we'll have it in podcast form, Spotify, iTunes, and the KSGF app.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 57. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 36. For your Thursday, a slight chance of showers in the afternoon, otherwise mostly cloudy with a high near 56. And for Friday, partly sunny with a high near 61.
A judge yesterday unsealed the warrant and probable cause warrant for the search down in Fulton County, 2020 election records. And this is an area of the country in which there has been a tremendous amount of focus because the irregularities with voting are so stark. It became virtually impossible to claim nothing funny was going on. And what was a real red flag for a lot of folks is the minute that the FBI went down to execute the search warrant, and then there was talk about Tulsi Gabbard being down there, and suddenly the Wall Street Journal is doing a hit piece on her, framing it as there were ethics complaints against her or some sort of whistleblower complaint that, of course, turned out to be nothing. But the timing of it, as the Wall Street Journal has become a bit like the Washington Post, whenever there's about to be something that is revealed in terms of corruption within government, the person who is uncovering it, they suddenly beforehand, they preempt it by trying to discredit an individual that's high profile and involved. And so when you had this execution of a search warrant down there in Fulton County and the Wall Street Journal subsequently writing a hit piece that turned out to be absolutely nothing on Tulsi Gabbard, that was just another red flag that, okay, there's smoke here, and where there's smoke, there's fire. So this is some of the more detailed information that is from the unsealed affidavit. Missing ballot images. The document claims that a Georgia resident whose name was redacted analyzed the ballot images of absentee voters and discovered the number of ballot images did not match the number of ballots cast. So it's supposed to be 1 for 1. Like every time a ballot goes in, scanned as an image. Well, it didn't add up. The analysis discovered not 1, not 12, but 17,852 missing ballot images. This information was submitted in complaint SEB 2023 through 25. A member of the State Election Board, which is known as the SEB, wished to view the ballot images personally. However, the Secretary of State's office would only allow them to view the images in person. In May of 24, the SEB member began reviewing them in person. They were given a laptop with 2 flash drives and 2 notes next to it. One note contained the person's name and a password to access the computer, as well as instructions not to remove the flash drive. The other note stated, quote, Vince must have miscounted. Only 15,464 ballot images short of 17,774 by 2,310. The SEB member right away noticed that secure hash validation, known as SHA files, were missing. Each ballot image should have a corresponding SHA file which guarantees that the image has not been modified. So it's sort of like a seal. A digital seal that indicates no one has messed with this file. This file has not been altered in any way. And she noticed that those seals were missing. She also noted modification dates associated with the files well past the time frame of the 2020 election. So in other words, someone, according to the evidence, went in and they were altering these files after the election. One file date was modified on January 11th of 2024, along with others modified prior to January 11th, 2024, according to another member of the election board. If there were technical issues or a clerical error that would have caused the images to be lost, it should have been documented. Fulton County has previously admitted that they did not preserve the majority of ballot images from November 3rd, 2020, from the November 3rd, 2020 count. The issue of duplicate ballots. Another witness, who happens to be a data analyst, reviewed the ballot images and recount ballot images believed to have been obtained from an open records request. He used a computer program that sought out duplicates based on stray or unique marks on the ballots and then allowed for a human review to confirm the duplication. The witness acknowledged that there were missing ballot images. However, none of them were, quote, hand-completed ballots. Only the in-person computer-generated ballots that contain a QR code were missing. He was able to conclude that there were duplicate ballots included in both the original count and the recount. He also concluded that there were 17,852 missing digital images from the second machine recount, which was used for the official certification count. The witness concluded that what he observed could be intentional but was not partisan. He claimed that Trump received 40% of those duplicate ballots rather than the average 30% in Fulton County. However, he concluded that the duplicate ballots were intended to make the recount numbers match more than to affect the outcome of the election. So what this data analyst is hypothesizing is that the evidence indicates that this maybe wasn't so much about trying to alter the outcome of the election, but to try and cover up for the fact that there were all these missing ballots. So there's like 17 plus missing ballots, and they knew the ballots were missing for whatever reason that isn't answered, and so they just started rescanning and recounting ballots that had already been counted in order to make the numbers match. This was similar to the complaint submitted by Joseph Rossi in the SEB 21 through 181, that complaint, which resulted in a consent order, found that 6,691 ballots were double and triple counted in the hand recount in order to make the numbers match. However, once discovered, the correct number was never even updated on the Secretary of State's official results. Now, there's the issue of tabulation tapes, and what this is supposed to be considered the holy grail of the final count. And this is when a ballot gets counted, it tabulates it, and so when it's all done, it's like a receipt that you have. It says, okay, this is how many ballots officially got cast. And the inconsistencies with that, according to the affidavit, coming up. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. The home of the Mexican Villa Taco, Springfield's authentic Springfield Mexican food. A judge unsealed the affidavit yesterday that was part of the probable cause for the FBI search warrant of Fulton County, Georgia 2020 election records. And one of the areas that was revealed was the issue of tabulation tapes. And the tabulation tapes are printed from each voting machine at the opening of the poll, where it's called zero tape, and at the close of the poll, called closing tape. So zero tape is unused, hasn't been used yet. And then when it's all done, okay, we're finished, we've wrapped up, voting's done. Closing tape is the final receipt, if you will. The tabulator tapes should match the number of physical ballots, the affidavit notes. Quote, the tabulation tapes is what is used as the holy grail for the final count. The tabulator tapes were reviewed by Clay Parikh, who has worked in cybersecurity since 2003 and specifically for a voting system test lab since 2008. He's currently a special government employee working for the executive branch for up to 130 days. Parikh reviewed the tabulator tapes, or the tabulator tape images, and drafted a report regarding his findings. The report determined that closing tabulator tapes were completely missing from some machines. He identified one tabulator that was used to close out 15 tabulators from 12 separate locations, which is in violation of Georgia election rules and regulations. He also identified that, quote, the poll closing time and report printed times on several closing tabulator tapes were close enough that he believes someone had to have manipulated the times on the reports. He believes this is evidence that the memory cards were removed from the original tabulator and inserted into a separate tabulator to print the closing tapes. The protective cover on the machines also raised concerns. The protective cover is like an odometer on a car. It increments with each ballot scan to show the total number of ballots run through a particular tabulator during its lifetime. Now, you may have noticed this on the ballot machines voting in Missouri, because a lot of you will note, oh, I was, this vote, because when you put in your ballot, the machine shows a number, and that's how you know how many ballots have been inserted into that machine during that voting day. Parikh's analysis revealed that the protective counters on at least 5 tabulator tapes from the same unit were identical, and that some of the reported ballots scanned exceeded the protective counter number. This indicates that the ballots weren't actually scanned through the tabulator or through those tabulators, but they were simply used to create the tabulator tape by closing the election on those particular machines. Then there is the issue of pristine ballots, which suggest further voter fraud. That from the affidavit coming up. I'm Nick Reed. Judge unseals warrant and affidavit of probable cause for FBI search warrant of Fulton County 2020 election, and that search warrant was executed. It was a couple of weeks ago, and the judge just yesterday has unsealed that. And one of the areas that of real concern regarding the balloting in the 2020 election specifically was the what's labeled as pristine ballots. And the affidavit reveals that one witness stated she observed absentee ballots that were pristine, meaning they had no folds, as would be required to put the ballot in an envelope. You know, you got to tri-fold it like you do anything that you mail, yet these, what they were told were absentee ballots, had not even been folded. Another witness, who had previously filed a complaint with the election boards, noted that the extra ballots were introduced during the count of the absentee ballots. Yet another witness, who had been a poll manager for over 25 years, claimed she received boxes of ballots that had broken security seals during the full hand count that was conducted after the first machine count. When she asked about the broken seals, she claimed she was told, quote, "They don't matter." She recalled receiving a batch of ballots that, quote, seemed different. The batch contained 110 ballots, of which 107 had the exact same votes for each candidate on the ballot. Now, mind you, this is a presidential election, which means virtually every office in any particular municipality is up for grabs. So you're talking about not just, the president of the United States, but you're talking about members of Congress. You're talking potentially about U.S. senator. You're talking about state rep. You're talking about state senator. You're talking about, in Georgia, they have a whole listing of different state offices as well. Governor, secretary of state. I mean, you're talking about dozens of different votes on a ballot, and 107 of them had exact same vote on every one. The 107 were labeled as, quote, absentee ballots, but appeared pristine, meaning that there were no folds and were too clean to be absentee ballots, she found. Lastly, she observed the 107 ballots felt different from all the other ballots, and the bubbles were all filled in the same. So it felt different, suggesting that the paper material was not the standard paper material used for legitimate ballots. Another stack, according to the affidavit, of about 60 ballots was allegedly from a senior living center. The witness believes that they should have been folded as well, but they were not. By the way, this is a very common tactic that is utilized. It is the infiltration of nursing homes, and I knew this because a very close friend of mine that was an elected Democrat in Wisconsin told me that his party did this every election cycle, where they would get absentee ballots in the name of these people in nursing homes, and then they would go to the nursing homes, fill them all out, and then submit them. So this is a very common tactic used. Lastly, a witness who is now a Fulton County commissioner stated she saw individuals who were printing random ballots after all of the test ballots had already been printed. So you've got 5 main areas here that were revealed as the evidence, the reason for the FBI to execute that search warrant in Fulton County. And at the same time, we have this attempt by some Republicans to, you would think it would be bare minimum, when it comes to federal elections, of which Congress has the constitutional authority to make the rules, to just, at the very least, prove that you're actually a citizen who's legally allowed to vote. And the hang-up in the Senate, right now, it's all dependent on Republicans. On an 80-20 issue. We are not a country, at least with significant people in charge, that have any concern about voter fraud. And it is on display consistently. Springfield's Talk 104.1. Welcome to hour number 2. My name is Nick Reed. Streaming live, YouTube. You can find us there, Springfield's Talk 104.1. We also, audio-wise, stream live on the KSGF app. Desktop, KSGF.com. Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor, there's so much coverage of the Guthrie disappearance, and you see the video of somebody that's masked approaching the house. And those of you that remember Matt Canovi would oftentimes talk about things that you can do in order to make sure that your home is safe, and having it lit up, having lighting out there. Lighting is an enemy of people who want to stay hidden. And so if you are in a neighborhood filled with homes that are not lit up, but you are the safest home in the neighborhood. That's just the reality of it, because somebody who is, again, prowling around, they're going to seek out the homes that have the least amount of lighting because they don't want to be detected. And uplighting on your home not only just makes it look so much nicer and completely alters the way that your home looks at night, it adds as a massive amount of security. And that is one of the many services that you get with Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor. And I don't mention it as often as I do when it comes to the outdoor living space, because that's what I've had done. Also the landscaping that they do, but that outdoor lighting is an area in which they are absolutely premier. And I can tell you, I know, you can go to the big box store and buy your own, or you can even hire some, sort of standard company that does 80 different things, and that's one of them. But if you want the absolute top of the line installation, placement, and product itself, then you want to go with the folks that are known as the best in the 417 when it comes to hardscaping and landscaping as well, and that's Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor. They are highly sought after, so whatever job it is you are looking for them to do, if you're looking to have it start around springtime or so, you probably want to reach out to them now. You can do so by going to hunterhardscapes.com or find them under Nick's endorsements at ksgf.com. Highly recommend. There's a personality trait of folks on the left is to jump out of a window before they know what's outside the window. If they see something that validates their worldview of things, there is no instinct to check it out to see whether it's true or not, but instead blast it all over the place. And part of the reason that they do this is because they don't have any shame in being wrong. People who are generally truth seekers, if you post something that turns out to be wrong, you feel embarrassed by it. You recognize that it is detrimental to your credibility, and you feel sometimes guilt because people saw it and they may have believed it and it turned out not to be true. But people on the left, that's not how they operate. That does not bother them at all, which is why they are the ones that, you and I, we constantly find things that they post and we're like, what are you thinking? So there's a liberal social media influencer that hilariously is now being accused of racism because of this behavior pattern. During the halftime show, there was, and I guess it was towards the end of the performance, where Bad Bunny handed a Grammy to this young boy. Oh, it's so touching. Oh, so touching. And at some point, the liberal media influencer, his name's Ed Krasenstein, discovered that the little boy was the same little boy that was, quote, detained by ICE. And so immediately sent that out to all of his followers, and how touching this was and how meaningful it was that this little boy who had so cruelly been detained by ICE for purposes of deportation just a couple of weeks ago now is the center of the universe, and because of love and anti-racism has had this amazing moment standing there at halftime receiving during the halftime of the great Super Bowl this Grammy Award from Bad Bunny. Well, it turns out that no, that wasn't the same kid at all. Like, not, in fact, it was some actor, the kid who had been in commercials for Walmart and Target and Huggies. It's the W Group. It's a talent agency. This kid's a total actor. This reminds me of these Kamala Harris videos she would do, in the one where she sat down with students to talk to them about space and the moon, and the left just gushed over these kids and the opportunity they had to sit down with the vice president. Turned out they were all kid actors. It's like the left, they don't even know real children, like normal children. They have, even when it comes to something as innocent as children, they have to hire those. Now, the reason the left-winger is, and it's somewhat fun for the right and Trump supporters to call him out for racism, is he can't apparently tell the difference between brown kids. Like, well, they look just alike. Oh, do they now? So who's the racist now? All brown children look alike, apparently, to people on the left. Have you seen the video circulating that some people have taken from the crowd at the Super Bowl during Bad Bunny's performance?
I have, where everybody's just kind of on their phone.
Totally bored.
Yeah, standing around.
Then I saw someone had posted a side-by-side of a point during the game in which the crowd just organically began singing Sweet Caroline, and which isn't uncommon at these events. A lot of times when there's a lull in a game, you will have another one is John Denver, Country Road. That's one. And Sweet Caroline, because it's got a hook that most people know the lyrics to, and so it's sort of an audible version of doing the wave. And they did a side-by-side. It was the exact same crowd, the same segment of the stadium, in which organically the crowd began doing Sweet Caroline, and everyone was participating and involved and up on their feet and having a good time. And then it shows those same people during what we're told was the most amazing and engaging performance ever in the history of mankind, specifically the Super Bowl. And it's like two people are kind of half dancing along, and everyone else is just almost watching it like, what is this? Who is this guy? And it's just telling. There's the Federalist had a piece on the way the media is portraying that Bad Bunny. It is, again, this attempt by the media to gaslight Americans who are in the majority into thinking they're in the minority. And we've been through this before. The Trump re-election was a rebuke of that. And you really saw the left lose their grip on that they had on the culture, in which they had convinced the majority of Americans that the anti-DEI crowd, the people who are tired of all of that stuff, the people who are tired of the transgenderism being shoved down their throat and the LGBTQ stuff, the rainbow mafia, and they really had Americans convinced that that was a very small minority of individuals. Well, that mindset really changed after the overwhelming victory of Donald Trump. And you suddenly had people that realized, oh my gosh, we're in the majority. I remember my wife saying this, like after it wasn't just Trump's election, but the overwhelming victory in every one of these swing states going to Donald Trump. And she had mentioned how it just felt like it was this we're not alone. We're not this extreme minority. We're actually in the majority. And it's part of the reason that you see the Sydney Sweeney phenomenon, in which here is a celebrity, and I do believe she is anchored in moral beliefs, which is part of the reason she didn't bend to the mob. But to have a major company like American Eagle say, no, we're done with this. There was another piece about how these corporations, the donations to these left-wing causes, specifically the LGBTQ stuff, is down by 65%. And so this this awakening of reality that occurred post-election that, oh, well, wait a minute here, the normal people are in the majority, the way that the media is portraying and the left is portraying this whole Bad Bunny thing is an attempt to once again put everyone back in their place, to once again make the majority of Americans who don't want to be trashed on, who don't want everything to be reduced down to color and sexual orientation, who don't want to be told how bad they are as white people and have American culture dismissed as somehow bad, that, you know, you are in the minority. And part of doing that is to celebrate this Bad Bunny event and portray it as the most amazing thing that everyone loved. Oh, everyone loved it. It was the only people who didn't love it are people who also thought you should have a separate bathroom and water fountain during segregation. But then there's reality. And listen, you can look at, you know, the numbers. Oh, this is how many watched. Oh, here's how many watched streaming the alternate. Oh, well, these new numbers came out. And that public battle is somehow supposed to tell us who, quote, is winning, who is in the majority. But I would argue, just look at the videos of the crowds of the people actually at the event. That is in real time. Those are clearly people that are supposed to be the target, the NFL audience. These are people who paid money to go to the game. And they were, at best, completely indifferent to what we're told was the most engaging, amazing, and inspiring performance ever. And so there is what we're told it was versus what you can see it really was in terms of perception of people who are actually there. And when you are at an event like that, even if you aren't a fan, it is easy to get caught up in it. I took the girl child and her friend and my wife. We went to see the Lumineers this past summer, and I'm not a fan of Lumineers. I can recognize their music, but, you know, at the event itself, I'm like, this is really, you really get caught up in it because of just, you know, the excitement around you and the music and the performance. The fact that none of that was actually occurring to real people in real time at the event, that tells you so much more than streaming numbers and narratives coming from people on the left. Latest news update. He's clearly an artist for racist. Vince Gill, you know, traditional, just feel good, not divisive.
Mm-hmm.
I like Vince Gill a lot.
I like Vince Gill too. The first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 57. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 36. For Thursday, a slight chance of showers in the afternoon, otherwise mostly cloudy with a high near 56. And for Friday, partly sunny with a high near 61.
Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, the best, capital B-E-S-T, that you're going to find when it comes to home buying, when it comes to home selling. And maybe you're, somebody that's moving in state and they're wanting to buy a lot of ranch land, or perhaps you are looking to retire and you've got all this acreage and you've got the barns because you've raised cattle or llamas or giraffes or whatever it might be. But you're like, you know what? I wish that I had somebody who was a real expert when it comes to this sort of real estate transaction. Well, there's Will. It's Emily's husband. And he's aces. I know some of you who are listeners know him. He and Emily had, of course, joined us in one of the Great Escapes, and that's an area of expertise for him. And so Emily, in order to really balance out what it is that House Theory Realty is doing, got someone who is an expert in that area so that everything is covered for you, no matter what sort of home, property, ranch, land you are looking to buy or sell. You are completely covered by the best in the area with Emily and Will Johnson, House Theory Realty. You can find them under Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com. I've heard a lot of discussion about whether the Turning Point USA halftime show was, quote, a success. And I've seen a number of pieces written by individuals that say, hey, I'm a conservative, but here's why it failed. And it's just like this real long listing of reasons. Like, well, Turning Point USA, their demographic is this, and Kid Rock is old, and it's just like kind of this stuff. And I heard Glenn Beck talking about this yesterday when I was in my office, and about how even if you are small potatoes, essentially, you shouldn't give up, even if you don't have the numbers that the real halftime show does. That means that you don't give up. He used the Blaze as an example, how so many people told him, hey, this is a ridiculous idea. You're never going to be able to take on the major networks, but he kept at it anyhow. And even though he hasn't taken over the networks, it's a noble cause. And so sometimes you just do it because it's right. And these thoughts aren't irrelevant, but I do believe sometimes we overthink things. Because here's how I look at it. It doesn't have to be making any point or trying to bring down anyone. It can be as simple as, here is the halftime show. It doesn't really appeal to me. Oh, here's an alternative. I kind of like this. So of the two, I've got a choice. I'm going to watch this one instead of that one. It's such a cliche to talk about how everything's so polarizing and everything's so political. And it's unfortunate that this is what the left has done, even when it comes to the freaking Super Bowl and halftime shows. They turn everything into something divisive. Now, they will claim it's not us, it's the right doing it. Well, no, it's not. This was not a problem until this halftime show. And as we noted yesterday, it's not a racism issue because the previous 8 Super Bowl halftime shows were black artists. The fact of the matter is the decision was made to pick someone that is clearly anti-American, who even declared he wouldn't perform in America again. At one point, clearly he wasn't sticking to those principles. A guy who burns the American flag, who does, that may be your thing, and you may like that, but that doesn't mean it's not divisive. And so here we are, where what should just be about entertainment, and of course the halftime show, it's like entertainment within entertainment, and all of this has been turned divisive by this left's approach of everything has to be trashing on America, and if you don't jump on board, you are the problem and you are being divisive. And so now you've got these 2 Super Bowl halftime shows, and none of the discussion ultimately is really about, oh, that was good, I enjoyed it, but which one won? Which side won? And while I don't dismiss the significance of the cultural implications of these divisions and because to me, even though it may not have the same numbers as the Super Bowl, the fact that an alternative halftime show for its very first time that was for the most part relegated to just streaming, that you had millions and millions of people watching it, that is phenomenal. To me, that's a win. I think Beck had mentioned that in terms of live streaming stuff on, I don't know if it was YouTube, but one of the platforms that they said they believed it was probably the single most successful live stream of anything that they'd ever done. That's a success. But I've seen these, well, should they do it again? Well, they just should. And this is coming from some conservatives even that, well, they just missed the mark, so they shouldn't do this again. Why? How about this? It's just something thrown into the mix that people who may not want to watch what is being offered up at halftime, that they like, oh, well, look, here's something else. Oh, I like these artists. I'll watch that. Simply because it doesn't get the same amount of visits or views doesn't mean it's. I mentioned we watched the for about 10, 15 minutes, the Puppy Super Bowl. That's been going on for 20 years. 20 years that's been going on. Do you think that it has a massive amount of viewers? No. But it's something to watch that a significant enough number of people watch. If you have some vegan restaurant open up, you clearly are not going to have the same amount of traffic that a non-vegan restaurant has. Does that mean that a vegan restaurant, well, you should close up because look how you failed. You get only 25% of the foot traffic that the steakhouse gets. No, it's an alternative. There is a lot to be read into the cultural aspect of what it all means when you have an alternative and when you have such a high volume of people that are watching it. And that is and can be of value. But it doesn't mean that it has to be something that is a cultural win, as in more views than this over here, in order to do it again. If there's an audience for it, people want it and want to watch it, then do it. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. Since you're talking about music, let people know that Boston's not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which is a travesty and needs the people vote to get them in. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line 447 KSGF. Traffic update. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 57. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 36. For Thursday, a slight chance of showers in the afternoon, otherwise mostly cloudy with a high near 56. And for Friday, partly sunny skies with a high near 61.
Don't forget, you can still today, last day to register for the Sweetheart Dinner at Vineyard Market. They're having a special dinner on Friday night and Saturday night. Any sort of potential openings that they still have, you can check out on their website. Is it vineyardmarket.com?
That's a good question. I think it is.
I do think that is what it is also. So it's a 3-course dinner that they're offering. It's a table that they want a KSGF winner to have, so that you can enjoy a 3-course dinner for 2, chef curated. You've got nice wine pairing with it as well. It's a fantastic place to eat. It's where we've started doing our happy hours, so I know many of you are familiar with it for that. And the dinner will be on Friday night, and today is the last day to get registered for that. If you win, you will be contacted on. Tomorrow.
Yes.
Yes.
And it is thevineyardmarket.com.
There we go. Thevineyardmarket.com. The Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. We act as if there's never been an alternative thing to watch at halftime during the Super Bowl. MTV used to do Celebrity Deathmatch thing at halftime. The World Wrestling Federation used to do Wrestling Match at Super Bowl halftime as an alternative channel. There's always been alternative things to do during the halftime show. We always make too much of these things. A lot of people go do alternative things during the halftime show. It's not about politics. It's about what's entertaining, or at least it should be. Yeah, and I agree with that. And like I said, I'm not dismissing the cultural insight that this gives us. But yeah, I mean, really, and the sad thing is, as I mentioned before, the game itself, once upon a time, this was not political. And with the NFL, it all started with the anti-police kneeling, and now we're it's just with the left, it's always anti-law and order. They default to siding with criminals, and so here we are once again to where we're fighting over the entertainment within the entertainment because of the left's insistence on turning these things into these battlegrounds. And this, again, is an MO of the left, and that they're these cultural events that become loyalty tests, in which it's there for you to let the world know whether you're on the good side or the bad side. It's a way for them to determine who is the good guy and who is the bad guy. So for the left, that it isn't about entertainment. It isn't even about just making it political. It is about determining who is bad and who is good. And if you think that isn't true, I'll once again note the shared meme that I continue to see by people on the left claiming that if you don't enjoy their entertainment and instead want some other form of entertainment, specifically the halftime show for the Super Bowl, then you are the same as a person who believed in separate water fountains for black people. That's literally what they're arguing. Think about the twisted, psychotic, control freak mindset of someone who believes if you don't enjoy and support their version of entertainment, then you are the same as people who say black people should have separate restrooms and separate fountains. That's like, I like Depeche Mode, and if I find out my wife doesn't, I'm like, well, clearly you're a whore because you don't like the same music I do. Like, well, what does one have to do with the other? Just doesn't matter. You're bad. You're a bad human being. You're a bad person. You're evil because you don't like the same entertainment I do. Now, the entertainment, of course, is an anti-American expression, and this is where they demand the loyalties to the anti-American. And you see it all over the place. It's the same reason that these left-wing journalists are putting, for some athletes in America, it's like the biggest, proudest moment of their lives. They've worked their entire lives since they were 5 and 6 years old to this moment, and this is instead where they need to declare whether they are pro-good guy or pro-Trump. And they are put on the spot to give their loyalty test by being asked a question that gives them the opportunity to either trash the country or be on the bad guy side. We are not that. This is the same mindset in which we've seen, let's say, for example, Jewish people forced to wear a Star of David so that they could be identified. There have been numerous attempts, oftentimes successfully so, by the authoritarian segment of a particular population or culture in which they force upon people identifying markers in order to make sure everyone knows they're the bad guys. And the identifying markers now are, it's the force declaration. And so if you don't comply, if you don't acknowledge and pledge your loyalty to their side, then they come after you. They seek to destroy you. This is authoritarianism. And these are the people who claim that Donald Trump is a dictator. Did you see, by the way, the Olympics and much of the coverage has been populated by discussions on these athletes that are asked, how do you feel representing America? However, for just a moment, snatching away the spotlight from that sort of Q&A was a Norwegian Olympian that won a bronze medal and took the opportunity when being interviewed about this great success to confess that he cheated on the love of his life 3 months ago and that he desperately wanted her back and broke down and cried during the interview. Did you see
No,
this?
I didn't see this. I'm gonna have to look this up.
Well, and the thing was, he had only been with her 6 months. Hey, listen, I'm not diminishing the impact of him cheating or even his emotional recognition that he screwed up and maybe realized, oh my gosh, just now that he lost it and realizing that, oh, this was the one. But yeah, they had been together 6 months. He had cheated on her 3 months ago, and he confessed last week to her. And so he uses this opportunity to break down and cry about how he did this and he's horrible and wrong for it. And now she, without being, she's like, I don't want to give my identity, but pretty much saying she is none too pleased with the fact that he did this and kind of, hey, he dug this hole. So I don't think in the interview I saw she said that it was out of the question that they may reunite, but she made it pretty clear. I mean, if this guy needs to stop for a moment and think to himself, okay, if what I just did isn't enough to get her to at least consider taking me back, do I really want to take her back? Like, will she ever? Am I gonna be 90 and she's still reminding me that 3 months into our relationship that I cheated on her? Is this really something that long term I want to be part of? But you never know. It could be the beginning of a beautiful love story. Someone texted in on the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line asking who I was talking about. They had just tuned in. I suspect this is, based off the timing of the text, reference to the Olympian that used his opportunity after a win of, I think it was the bronze in the Olympics, to confess that he cheated on his girlfriend, his 6-month girlfriend. He cheated on her 3 months prior and had told her 1 week prior, and that he used his interview to just sort of kind of, I guess, try to win her back. Doesn't appear to be working. She seemed none too pleased in an interview that she gave responding to it. But it was a Norwegian athlete, and let's see. He did get the bronze medal. He was a biathlete. So whatever that means, I don't even know. It means two things, I guess. Do you know what a biathlete is like? What do they do? Run and then shoot a bow and arrow? I don't know exactly what that is, but
Cross-country skiing and rifle shooting?
okay. Well, I wasn't, what I say, running and shooting a bow and arrow, so I wasn't too far off, actually.
You
Okay.
weren't.
What a combo.
I wonder how that was created.
Oh, no, it's
Like,
like, you know what? This cross-country skiing, it's a little too boring. We need to add something to it. How about we shoot guns?
right.
You know what? I think that spells Olympics. Definitely. The New York Post has an interesting story here that completely, once again, defies the disinformation campaign that Donald Trump somehow has been trying to cover up for Epstein. This is of great frustration to a lot of Trump supporters because it is the Trump support base that for years, along with Trump, has been talking about this as a problem, Epstein being a piece of crap. Donald Trump is the only person, according to one of the attorneys for the victims, the only person that from the very beginning of all of this, before he was, we're talking before he's president of the United States, was the only person that was completely cooperative and telling law enforcement, yeah, you got to nail this. This is a bad guy. The only person. And the Democrats and their reliance on the ignorance and, frankly, stupidity of their base has allowed them to convince their base that Trump is the bad guy in all of this. The New York Post, Trump told Palm Beach police chief, thank goodness you're stopping Epstein, called Ghislaine Maxwell evil in a 2006 phone call, according to some of the new documents released. It's amazing every time a document gets released that involves Donald Trump and Epstein, it is exonerating him. I guess we know why it is that the Biden administration wasn't releasing some of this information. Donald Trump personally called the police chief of Palm Beach, Florida in 2006 to thank him for investigating Jeffrey Epstein and told him to also focus on the disgraced financier's, quote, evil accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, according to a newly released FBI document. According to the summary of an October 2019 interview of Michael Ryder, who served as the wealthy Florida enclave's top cop from 2001 to 2009, the future president was, quote, one of the very first people to call when people found out that authorities were investigating Epstein for sex with girls as young as 14, whom he had hired to give him massages. Quote, thank goodness you're stopping him. Everybody has known he's been doing this. Trump was quoted as telling the officer on the call, adding that he, quote, got the hell out of there on one occasion when he was around Epstein while teenagers were present. The summary, first reported by the Miami Herald, added that Trump told Ryder that he threw Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago and that people in New York knew Epstein was disgusting. Trump also referred to Maxwell as Epstein's operative, telling the chief, quote, she is evil and you need to focus on her. Ryder's name is redacted in the interview summary, but details in the document match up with publicly known information about his role in the Epstein probe. According to the chief, he met Epstein after the financier reported one of his employees for stealing from him. Ryder recounted that Epstein donated $40,000 to the department for the purchase of a machine to review security footage, cut a $90,000 check, never cashed, to buy a fingerprinting machine around the time his victim came forward, and gave more than others to a police scholarship fund for children. So in other words, as he was being accused, he starts spreading money around and making these donations to law enforcement. When Ryder inquired about Epstein, he claimed to have been told that the financier, quote, supports law enforcement and is an important guy. The Palm Beach Police Department began receiving reports about Epstein in the early 2000s, maybe 03. According to the summary, eventually, Ryder said his officers put together a sprawling case against Epstein, including sexual battery cases against the co-conspirators. However, Ryder recalled the state prosecutors said the victims were not credible and would show their MySpace pages and such. They would refute minute details in the probable cause affidavit. The case died at the state level. The summary of the FBI interview of Ryder was included in millions of files that have been released by the Justice Department in connection with the case of Epstein, who pleaded guilty to sex charges, so forth, so forth. The document emerged hours after Ghislaine Maxwell invoked her Fifth Amendment right under self-discrimination during a closed-door virtual deposition before the House Oversight Committee. And so once again, and there has been no one that has been publicly, well before Epstein was charged with anything, anti-Epstein, banning him from Mar-a-Lago. And now we know, based off of these FBI released documents, that as far back as 2006, Trump, while law enforcement in Florida was receiving donations from Epstein and downplaying accusations from victims, Trump was once again the lone voice saying, nah, this guy's dirty. You need to nail him. By the way, this Ghislaine Maxwell chick, she's his conspirator in this. You need to focus on her as well. While that is going on, which is the truth, you have Ilhan Omar out there, and she made a post that, of course, suggested the opposite is true and that Donald Trump is a pedophile because of his connections to Epstein, noting that at least in Somalia, they don't elect pedophiles to office, they execute them. So suggesting that he should be killed. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. It's tax season. Pinnagar family, Pinnagar Honda help you max that tax refund. Brand new 26 Honda HR-V Sport for just $289 a month. Or you can drive home the super sporty 26 Honda Civic Sports Sedan, $179 a month. New 2025 Honda Pilot, $3,000 off with rates as low as 2.49%. And there is the 1.49% available on select certified pre-owned vehicles. That's happening through March 2nd. So if you are interested in pre-owned vehicles from Pinnagar Honda and taking advantage of the incredibly low interest rates there, then I would make your way over there relatively soon. Stop by, give them a visit. Those deals are set in place until, well, through the rest of the month, through March 2nd. Pinnagar Honda, South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn. Yeah, so here is the story I referenced. I was looking for the post that she made, and I did find it. And Ilhan Omar had posted regarding Trump, the leader of the pedophile protection party trying to deflect attention from his name being all over the Epstein files. At least in Somalia, they execute pedophiles, not reelect them. So the woman who married her own brother is now suggesting that Donald Trump, in a righteous world, back in good old Somalia, which is better than the U.S. of A., Donald Trump would be executed. She is correct in the fact that his name is in the Epstein files, but so far they've all been about him telling law enforcement that Epstein's a bad guy and that Ghislaine needs to be nailed as well. He's the one guy that has consistently been on the other side of this. Springfield's Talk 1041, and hello, everyone. Hope you are doing just dandy as we make our way into hour number 3. New York Post reporting Northern California teacher placed on leave due to an ICE posting on social media. Well, finally, one of these left-wing lunatics held accountable. We see, these folks in the school districts oftentimes posting threatening messages regarding ICE, calling for their death, calling them Nazis, marching students as young as elementary school students. Indoctrinating them into chants like a cult to, walk out into the streets and do anti-ICE chants like they're North Korean school children. And so it's about time one of these people held accountable. Now, I'm being somewhat facetious because this teacher that was suspended made a posting that was pro-ICE. So we finally have found the sort of posting that in the minds of teachers' unions and some of these school districts, this one out in California, what sort of social media posting regarding ICE is completely unacceptable. Not calling them Nazis, not calling them Gestapo, not declaring that they should be killed, but saying, hey, good job, law enforcement. The teacher placed a teaching intern on leave, or the school district, for celebrating ICE. Saray Jimenez, a special education teaching intern at McQuitty Elementary in Watsonville, endorsed the presence of ICE officers in her town in a comment on the social media network last month, saying, yay, we need ICE in Westonville. It's been getting out of hand. The backlash intensified after ICE agents arrested a Watsonville resident last month, according to Lookout Santa Cruz. Parents in the Pajaro Valley United School District, where 84% of the students are Latino, so apparently the inference there, and this is the left's mentality, if you're brown, that means you support illegal immigration. If you're brown, you support law breaking. If you're brown, you support not following the rules like everyone else does. Now, many of us reject that notion. Simply because you look brown doesn't mean that you are a supporter of criminals, but that's how the left views you. That and as housekeepers, according to their own admissions. One local father said, you can't just tell the world how you feel and not expect repercussions from people because of how they feel about ICE. Well, sure you can if you're on the left. If you're encouraging them to be unmasked so that drug cartels can identify them who have bounties on their head. That's just freedom of speech. And as we know, we're told by school districts every time there is some sort of anti-ICE posting, there is a call for violence against ICE, children are walked out of classrooms, we're told, hey, it's free speech. Until you say, hey, we kind of need ICE. The teacher has received all sorts of hateful, threatening social media comments, and she's the one, however, that is in trouble. And let's just remember here, we're not talking about calling even for some new, it's simply enforcing the laws that already exist. This is, again, the gaslighting that the left undertakes. And you see the successful impact that it has on the mindless zombies. You saw it on display in Branson last night. We'll talk about this coming up. The city of Branson law enforcement there agreeing to contract with ICE, and we'll tell you what it means. The irony here is that what it would do is keep ICE out of Branson to a large degree. Now, I'm sorry, I thought that's what these lefties wanted. You have these lefties running around all over, whether it's Minneapolis or, in Springfield or in Branson, like, keep ICE out, keep ICE out. Okay, well, one way to do that is whenever local law enforcement comes in contact, you arrest somebody, they're beating their wife and their kids and they're drunk, you arrest them and they turn out to be in the country illegally, you allow them to go ahead and move forward with some of the processes that ICE otherwise would be doing, but you can do it without ICE being part of the community. I thought that's what these people on the left wanted. See, it's not even about ICE. What occurred in Branson last night is a demonstration. It is not about ICE. It is about allowing criminals to evade any sort of responsibility whatsoever and to pick and choose who in our country gets to break laws, apparently people who aren't supposed to be here, who aren't even American citizens. This is not about safety. It's not about protecting people, because giving a free pass and making it easier for violent criminals who are in this country illegally to evade capture is a danger to the immigrant community, because these people generally reside around or spend time around people that are also immigrants, be they illegal or legal. So they are disproportionately higher in terms of being victims of these people. That's who the left is protecting, not the victims. A couple of weeks ago, perfect example of that, the illegal immigrant who was arrested for shooting in the chest a man, leaving him dead on a front lawn in Springfield. And guess what? That man was from Mexico. Gee Willikers, really looking out for that immigrant community, aren't we? Just another dead Mexican. That's the left's perspective. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 57. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 36. For your Thursday, a slight chance of showers in the afternoon, otherwise mostly cloudy with a high near 56. And for Friday, partly sunny with a high near 61.
Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air, since the weather has been a little nicer over the last couple of days, it's reminded me of another service that the Foreman team offers, and that is indoor air quality testing. If you are an individual that suffers from allergies, this testing may be just the thing that you need for this spring. The Foreman team, they can help identify allergens within your home, and then they can offer and install products and get you breathing a little easier. I'm telling you right now, this service I will be utilizing here in a couple weeks because I'm already suffering from allergies, and it's gonna go downhill for me. And if you're in the same boat as well, reach out to Russell today and schedule that indoor air quality testing. You can find all of the contact information for Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
A number of you have inquired about the meeting that took place in Branson last night regarding ICE and what this is all about. So we'll talk about this. Now, it should be noted, and the headline in the news leader, Branson PD enters in a contract with ICE despite community opposition. And there were a number of people that showed up at the event last night, and they were opposed to enforcing of immigration laws. But at the same time, it was noted, I didn't highlight it in the story here, but somewhere in the story that the majority of the people that were at this meeting weren't even from Branson. So this was not the Branson community speaking out against the enforcement of our laws. This was, as they acknowledged, people, many of which were from here. So here it says, while some speakers were Branson residents or grew up in Branson, the public comment portion also included speakers from Springfield and smaller communities surrounding Branson. And so, which is what you can expect. This is how these people operate. They will oftentimes come from outside of the community. And, I suppose, any community can do what they want. And when it comes to their laws and the vote of their aldermen or council people, if they want to let people from random communities come and tell them what they should or shouldn't do, I suppose that's their right to do. But I also think that there might be a value, particularly when it comes to an issue in which the community might have strong feelings about it, to limit it to people who actually live in the community. And to say, hey, okay, we were elected by the people of Branson, and so we are going to take the time to listen to the people of Branson. It really does negate the ability of people to claim they're not, quote, listening to the community, when every minute that is taken up by somebody who doesn't live in Branson is a minute that's being taken away as an opportunity for somebody who actually is a resident of Branson to have their voice be heard at an event like that. The Board of Aldermen unanimously approved an agreement that will bestow upon Branson Police Department officers the power to carry out immigration enforcement. Now, what does that mean? What this doesn't do is suddenly give Branson law enforcement the authority to act as a carbon copy of immigration enforcement. The memorandum of agreement between ICE and the Branson Police Department provides for certain law enforcement officers to be trained and then, after an examination, authorized to perform limited functions of an immigration officer under 287G program. The city document outlines that participating personnel will have the authority to question any undocumented immigrant or person that they suspect of being illegal about their right to be or remain in the U.S., to arrest without additional warrants anyone believed to be in the U.S. illegally, that at the same time is believed to likely be someone that would escape before a warrant can be obtained, and the power to issue detainers for illegal immigrants or illegal aliens and take and maintain custody of those arrested pursuant to immigration laws, among others. Now, let me tell you what this essentially is doing. And I've seen these scenarios play out before, in which you'll have local law enforcement and they end up arresting someone who is violating a law, and the person doesn't even speak English, and it's very clear that it is someone who is not in the country legally, but they're like, well, nothing we can do about it, and they have to let him go. This essentially would note, if you're one of the specific officers in Branson that is given the limited authority, and again, you get a call for domestic abuse, and you show up, and it becomes clear that the guy is potentially in the country illegally, that you can interrogate that individual about immigration status. You can question them about it, and if need be, you can detain them for ICE. I believe to most people that seems reasonable. Of course, to the left, whose goal is to flood this country with people who don't like the country, who have no interest in the values of the country, some of which utilize, or have up until the Trump administration, utilized this country as a human trafficking playground. They want any and all of these people to come into this country. And we've talked about the reasons why. And this, they can deny it all they want. But Biden, when he was running for president, said that if I get elected president, every single person who's been turned away for being an illegal immigrant, you're going to come back to this country. This isn't a secret. And the American people responded overwhelmingly when they voted. And, quote, democracy dictated that we begin enforcing these immigration laws. This is not a difficult concept. The police chief, Eric Schmidt, said that the contract ensures that local officers who actually know and live in Branson themselves are the ones making the decisions, and not federal officers who lack that knowledge and that care. Is this not what the left has claimed that they wanted all along? This entire get ICE out movement, this, in a very significant capacity, does just that. It allows for the enforcement of our immigration laws if and when law enforcement, while making a call on crime or pulling somebody over for drunk driving, and the person that they come across happens to be somebody that's in this country illegally, allows them to do the job without having ICE come in. The pushback on this shows us that those who claim it's about ICE and, we need to leave this to local law enforcement. This is what's said in Minneapolis so often. And, it's the mantra, we're not against enforcement of immigration law. It just needs not be ICE. They're the Gestapo. This should be a local law enforcement issue. Well, that's exactly what this does. Suddenly the left doesn't like that anymore either. Many we'll take a break, and I want to hit a few other points on this, include, speakers share fears, and there were people that were crying. Please. Have any of these people shed a tear for the countless women and children raped and murdered because of the policies that they are pushing, that they have supported, of turning our country into a freewheeling playground for some of the worst criminals imaginable? Have they dare shed a tear for any of those people? No. So spare me the heartache and the heartbreak you display, given those for whom you prioritize it. the Branson aldermen unanimously voted yesterday to contract with ICE, and that term I think is a bit misleading. It makes it sound as if I think it's fair to say a lot of people would infer from that essentially they are now going to be working for ICE, and that's not what is occurring here. It allows some officers in very limited instances, if they are arresting, somebody for a crime and they believe that person to be an illegal immigrant, that they can interrogate them about their immigration status, that they can hold them for ICE if they determine that they are somebody who is an illegal alien in this country. It essentially allows law enforcement in Branson to not be forced to let criminals who are in this country illegally go back out into the community. And as we all know, this is something that the left has a tremendous problem with because they constantly side with criminals. It is their go-to. It is their bread and butter. And for anyone who disputes that, again, find me a press conference in which the left is highlighting someone who's a victim who isn't a criminal. And then find me the press conferences in which they are holding the vigils or bringing attention to, the 19-year-old college student who was raped and murdered by somebody in this country illegally simply because she went for a jog. Where are those press conferences? They don't exist. It's always for the criminal. Now, and so much of this is not based in any actual statistic analysis, let alone in reality or common sense. But, they claim that if law enforcement enforces the law, particularly when it comes to illegal aliens who commit crimes in Branson, then people will be afraid to call law enforcement. What isn't the point of calling law enforcement to report a crime? Is not the point of calling law enforcement to assist in making sure that people are held accountable when they don't follow the law? So the mindset of the left is that people will not call law enforcement in order to make sure the law is enforced if they know law enforcement is enforcing the law. Now do those mental gymnastics. Many referenced occasions, and again, the news leader acknowledged that many of these speakers weren't even Branson residents. Many of the speakers referenced occasions in which illegal aliens have been deported for minor crimes that aren't even violent. They're here illegally. This is unfortunately one of the narratives that the left has been somewhat successful in creating, and that's the idea that a person who is breaking our immigration laws should not be held accountable unless they've raped someone. And even then, it's sort of up in the air. That's like me arguing if I drive around with expired plates and I don't have a driver's license, saying I should get away with it because, well, I didn't run over anyone with my car. I didn't commit any sort of violent crime with my car. I didn't involved in a hit and run and kill someone while drunk driving. So I should be able to continue to drive without a license and not be punished. Do you think that excuse would work for me? Of course not, nor should it. Simply because you are in this country illegally and you haven't broken a worse law doesn't mean that the lesser law you broke, you get a free pass on. No, I didn't kill anyone while I did it, so I should be able to get away with it, right? You rob a house and you rape someone. Well, yeah, but I didn't kill her. So, come on. That is the approach they take when it comes to this issue of illegal immigration. Well, I mean, they didn't commit a violent crime, so I can't believe you're deporting them. What about this do you have such a difficult time understanding? Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 57. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 36. For your Thursday, a slight chance of showers in the afternoon, otherwise mostly cloudy with a high near 56. And for Friday, partly sunny skies with a high near 61.
I want to mention one other thing about, specifically the story with the Branson PD entering into this agreement with ICE and the meeting that took place in Branson, and it was noted that a number of the women there were crying and wiping away tears. There oftentimes is a lack of understanding, which makes complete sense, as to what degree political parties and movement will do research on targeting audiences. They're like companies. You know, you're a company and you do research and you find out, okay, all right, what is our target? What is our goal here? And then what is it we can do in order to better cater to that particular audience? How is it, whether it's through marketing or just the product or service itself? Let's say that your target is suburban housewives. What can we do in our marketing that will make the suburban housewife feel more compelled to purchase our good or service? And political campaigns and political movements do this as well, and that includes the pro-illegal immigration movement. And what they had determined, which some would argue you wouldn't necessarily even need a research project on this, but nonetheless, what some of these left-wing organizations determine in their evaluation is that if they were going to try, like what would be the most easily manipulated demographic to flip on this issue in America when it comes to illegal immigration, because a lot of this was post-election, in which the left realized that Americans overwhelmingly felt that the border needed to be enforced, and you had a majority of Americans polled saying we should deport these people. And so what happens is there's a recognition that you can't win over a percentage of everyone necessarily on certain issues, and so you look at different demographics and you say, okay, well, which demographic here is going to be the most vulnerable to manipulation? When it came to George Floyd, they identified the black population, and so Black Lives Matter, came about, and you had the left really targeting that particular group. But it was determined that when it comes to the issue of illegal immigration, that with imagery and certain verbiage, white women, particularly suburban white women, would be the most easily manipulated because of and this is their assessment, the weakest emotional control of that particular demographic. And so that was their determination, that when it came to this issue, that's where we can get the most ground, is to, do the thing with the kids and the, talk about, they're going to go into schools and really hit areas that they felt would, take what they viewed on this issue as the weakest amongst us to get on their side. And arguably, they were correct, and it has worked. And I just thought, when I think about how it is that they had done that research and they've acted on it, that you have a story and you've got, some of these women crying in the audience about, the plight of these poor illegal aliens, and how, they don't know that you have been targeted because they believe that you are weak and that you are the most easily manipulated. What is arguably ironic about it is women on the left believe themselves to be these strong, iron-clad individuals that have resolve of steel, and they just consider themselves to be the opposite of the traditional woman, and they're just so strong and every bit as strong as a man, yet they are the ones who prove to be what the left has been targeting, and that is the weak ones. while conservative women, the women that the left love to somehow portray as these weak little mindless individuals that just sit at home waiting for their husband to tell them what to do and have no thought of their own, are the ones that have stayed relatively solid in their beliefs on this and have not been effectively manipulated like women on the left. And I just think that that's pretty interesting. Joe Biden is going to visit South Carolina to commemorate his lifetime of public service. It's like, why would you even do this? It's the Democrat Party that's doing this. So Joe Biden is apparently going to visit South Carolina later this month to celebrate his lifetime of public service and the primary win the state delivered to him in 2020, which is credited with saving his campaign. He'll be stopping, in Columbia later this month for a fundraiser to mark the 6th anniversary of that victory. $125 a piece for the tickets, which, I mean, really isn't that much for a former president, I wouldn't think, but nonetheless.
Are the funds going for his library?
You know, that's
to
a
his
really
library?
good question. That's profits will support candidate recruitment, infrastructure, and voter engagement work, according to the release. But, you know, they're not always real honest about where money goes, so who knows? It's, quote, about honoring President Biden while also doing the very practical work of preparing for what is next. Yes, nothing says we are preparing for turning the page in the future like dragging out an old guy that is clearly senile and has done nothing in the private sector. I mean, who is what the left claims they hate the most, and that's the rich old white guy, yet they constantly gravitate toward, and so here they're going to celebrate this guy. I mean, why would you want to even remind people of this humiliation? But hey, their party. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. I love a good review, and there is no shortage of good reviews for the Pyramid Roofing Company. William, he wrote, as a construction worker for 20 years myself, I know quality when I see it. The Pyramid Roofing Company is the best in the business. I highly recommend them. And William, he also posted a couple of before and after photos, and the Pyramid team, they did a phenomenal job on his home. Look, if you are looking for a roofing company that will shoot you straight and they will treat your home like it's their own, you've definitely found it with the Pyramid Roofing Company. They offer free roof inspections and they offer discounts for our military and first responders on new roof installs. If it's time to have the Pyramid team out to your home, reach out to Josh today. You can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
There has, of course, been a lot of focus, as desperately as the Democrats have tried to distract from it, but fraud that has put a spotlight on the Somali community in Minnesota because of the massive amount of money funneled to people in the Somali community. And, we know about all the fake daycares and so forth. Armenian speakers in Los Angeles County, according to recently revealed information, utilize California's in-home supportive services program at a rate of roughly 700% higher than their proportion of the county's population, according to analysis done by the Center Square, renewing attention to potential fraud concerns in the community amid the ongoing public dispute between CMS Administrator Dr. Oz and Governor Gavin Newsom. Of course, you can imagine which side Gavin Newsom's on. A top fraud expert said the Center Square IHSS data analyst likely reveals organized fraud networks operating in L.A. County's Armenian-speaking community, with participants allegedly getting kickbacks and funneling large amounts of money out of the country through cash-based hawala networks. While the U.S. Census estimates Armenians are only 2.1% of L.A. County's population, Armenian speakers are 14.7% of L.A. County's recipients of IHSS care, according to language data. No other group in Los Angeles County comes anywhere close to their utilization of IHSS, with the next highest utilization rate at half that of the Armenian speakers. Haywood Talcove, a nationally recognized fraud expert and CEO of LexisNexis Risk Solutions for Government, who has spent nearly 2 decades leading efforts to stop fraud and protect taxpayer resources, said the data TCS uncovers shows something wrong happening in LA. Quote, "It's fraud. It's in the community, and someone is teaching them how to do it. The money doesn't stay in LA or California. A portion of it gets moved out of the country through the hawala networks." Now, the program, the In-Home Supportive Service Program, was designed to get people assistance at home without having to move to an expensive facility, allowing qualifying residents to use taxpayer funds to pay in-home providers, mostly live-in relatives, for domestic and personal care services that include laundry, cooking, cleaning, and shopping. The state's 799-plus thousand providers are paid an average of more than $2,000 per month, or in excess of $24,000 a year. Less than half of recipients in L.A. County even speak English. And so what you have here is what clear. This is a version of what was going on in Somalia, but it's with the Armenians in L.A. County. And I think that it's fair to say most of us recognize this is probably happening all over the country. And you know what increasingly this is bringing into focus? Is that really, as a country, we are suckers. We have become the easy target for scammers across the globe. And our government that is supposed to be representing us is the government that is facilitating this. Now, in many of the cases, the ones that we've learned of so far, particularly Somalia, it is an issue with the state. In California, an issue of the state. In fact, whenever you do have attempts, as this administration is doing, in order to uncover this stuff and hold these people accountable, the Democrats run cover for them. They cry racism. They say it isn't true. And so what you have is this conspiracy of sorts for different reasons and different motivations by Democrats to make you and I suckers, absolute suckers, that become targets for these scam artists. You know, we laugh about the cliched Nigerian prince scam in which you've got somebody who gets bilked out of thousands and thousands of dollars because somebody pretends to be someone they're not and convinces them to turn over their money. Well, that same operation, or that same style of operation, is going on a wide scale across this country, and it is a partnership between scam artists, who many of which don't live in the country, their counterparts in the country, and then the assistance coming from members of the Democrat Party. They're turning us, I mean, we have just become one giant pocket for the rest of the world to pick. And the people who should be doing everything they can to stop it, because this is money being stolen from their own citizens, The Gavin Newsoms and the Tim Waltzes of the world are facilitating it and at the very least protecting the people who are doing it. You cannot claim a political party cares about those in need when they knowingly help assist or at the very least cover up for people who are stealing the money that is supposed to go to the people in need. Because a lot of it depends on the part of the country that you live in, but when we hear about how so many of our elected officials cover up for and facilitate the theft of our dollars to funnel into other countries, be it Somalia or Armenia or wherever it may be, it is all the more reason and recognition that when it comes to your will, when it comes to your trust, when it comes to any sort of your assets that you want to make sure you keep within the family, you have to have it done right, because the government is so often filled with people that are absolutely corrupt, that look to just take money from good people for a number of different reasons. And so you have to protect yourself. And it doesn't mean every single person who is in government that is tasked with making these decisions because you didn't have a proper will filled out is somebody that is a thief, that is immoral, and has nefarious intent. But those people exist to a very wide degree. And so you just want to make sure, even aside from that, that where your things go, you want them to go, that is where they go. If you've downloaded for $199 a will and trust online, no, don't think that that is going to be helpful to you. The state you live on changes and depends on what is acknowledged and not acknowledged. So you need to have Ozarks Elder Law tell you what you need to have done. Now, the consultation does not cost. It is a courtesy to you. And so that way you find out what it is you need to do and how much it'll cost to do it, whether it is a power of attorney situation or a will or trust situation, or just making sure that you don't leave tax implications to your children or grandchildren that don't have to be left to them. You got to know that you're doing it right. OzarksElderLaw.com. Get your free consultation set up today. There's an article in the Daily Caller about Stanford University and how they have a disability accommodation apparatus that is there in order to accommodate people that have disabilities. And it is something that the reason they write about this is because students are gaming the system, and they're knowingly gaming the system. One of the most prestigious universities in the U.S. offers perks to those who claim they have ADHD, night terrors, or even gluten intolerance. Elsa Johnson, an undergraduate at Stanford University, tells The Times you'd be stupid not to game the system. And we may talk about this in depth some tomorrow, but it just talks about how you've got, once again, government and just giving money hand over fist. And they, every year that comes around, find some new reason. If you have some new, quote, disability, we will give you financial assistance. And students recognize that. And so they're gaming the system. And when you look at that and you pair it with these other stories of Somali fraud and Armenian fraud in LA and all this fraud, we are creating a culture in which we are essentially turning into a Somalia-like society, in which young people are learning that in this country it's all about corruption, and so if you can't beat them, join them. And that is really revealing itself in this piece in the Times regarding students at Stanford. They're like, oh, yeah, I mean, you got to get what you can. Any opportunity that you can to claim that you have some sort of disability or some need where the government's handing out money, you'd have to be stupid not, because if you're not part of the taken, then you're part of the given. That's the culture we are creating in this country. Glenn Beck's